So this is the first video of our multi-part series covering our ETL module. In this video, we'll be covering what is ETL and the fundamental concepts behind how our ETL module works. So what is ETL? ETL stands for extract, transform, load. Basically, extract is getting data from a defined source, followed by transforming said data via calculations and aggregations. And finally, once we have performed those calculations and aggregations, we then want to save that state, in which case we load it into MongoDB or an Excel spreadsheet, etc. So to bring us to an example in real life, we'll use a simple math problem over here. So Rachel has 10 apples. If she gives 6 away, how many is left? Now, how the human mind will work is we will then zoom into the 10 apples and the 6 that she gives away. So in our mind, we highlight these two values, right? And in a way, this is analogous to how the ETL module will extract data. So we extract 10 and 6, and then finally we need to apply the formula of subtraction. So 10 minus 6, right? This is the transformation, which will give us 4. Okay, and if we were then to write down the answer 4 on a piece of paper as such equals 4, we are then loading this onto the sheet of paper. So we are saving this transformed data. Okay, so some terminology. The first one, at the lowest level in the ETL, we have steps. So each step is a fundamental building block. Think of this as your Lego brick. They are as simple as it gets. And they have no complexity built in. Okay, we can then string these steps together in a chain. So a chain is a collection of steps, and by stringing multiple steps together, we can then develop more and more complex functions. Now a chain can call another chain within the same chain set. So this is the next in the hierarchy, which is chainsets, which is a collection of chains. So to describe steps, they are loosely defined into two categories for the purpose of this tutorial. So you have data producers, which also known as sources, and you have data consumers. So data sources are a necessary beginning in each chain to produce records for your downstream steps, which is your data consumers. So data consumers then take in records from your data sources and then they process them. So you need data sources in order for your data consumers to have something to work on. So in the diagram on the right, you'll see that for each one record passing through step number 1, you will get 0 or many records. And you can also abort this through cancellations or if you meet an exception. So fundamentals of a chain, right? Chains, when stringed together or with multiple steps, are essentially complex functions. They are reusable because a chain can call another chain, and they can have parameters. Now these parameters can have a default value, which also are not limited to just strings. In the diagram on the right, you'll see some minor changes. Right, so for every one record that passes into a chain, right, in this example, the chain has 5 steps, but this is an arbitrary number. It will produce 0 or many records. At the same time, it can be cancelled, or if it meets an exception, it will abort. So the anatomy of a typical ETL chain, you will first have your data source, right? A step to read data source, and you will produce 0 or many records. And then once you've read it in, you might want to do some validation to ensure that the incoming data is correct, accurate, and free of errors. Now once that has been done, we want to do some aggregations or calculations. Finally, we want to put it into, for example, an API using our built-in API gateway. Now at any point in this step, you can note that you can have cancellations and exceptions to abort. So if you round it up, you see that you have your extract, transform, load. So some common exceptions you might meet is, for example, when you're just starting out using the tool, you might have no data output. Now this is just a matter of getting used to remembering the rule that if there's no data from upstream, you will not get any data downstream. Next, if you ever do division, right, take note that if you divide by 0, you emit an exception. And the next rather common error or exception will be bulk write errors. So bulk write errors occur when the unique ID in the hidden field underscore ID is duplicated. So to fix this, use the step discard field on field ID. Now this will be a temporary workaround until you can find the root cause. So this concludes our introduction to our ETL module. On the next video, we'll be going through the user interface and the various functions and feature sets.